At 75, the tragedy of Richard Gere is beyond heartbreaking. Once he was Hollywood's silver prince, the man whose stillness spoke louder than dialogue, whose smile could disarm the coldest heart. From an officer and a gentleman to Pretty Woman, he embodied romance, elegance, and the kind of masculine mystery that turned him into a global obsession. Women adored him, men admired him, and studios trusted that just his name alone could sell out theaters. But behind the glamour, a darker story was being written. The same man who ruled the box office became the man Hollywood refused to touch. He turned down roles that could have made him immortal. He disappeared from red carpets as if erasing himself from the dream factory he once defined. And when he dared to speak his truth on the Oscar stage in 1993, that single moment silenced his career for more than 20 years. How does a man go from being the king of romantic cinema to being banned from the very institution that once celebrated him? Was it politics? Was it love, the string of beautiful romances that collapsed into emptiness? Or was it something far more haunting, a reason hidden so deep the world never saw it coming? Richard Gere's life is not just a story of fame and fortune, it's a story of sacrifice, exile, and the unbearable cost of integrity. But the darkest secret was yet to be revealed. Richard Gere was never just another actor. He was an illusion, a spell, a rare kind of presence that Hollywood only conjures once in a generation. If you've ever seen Pretty Woman, you remember it, that quiet gaze across the dinner table, a smile that didn't need dialogue, and a stillness so magnetic it made the audience hold their breath. For more than 3 decades, Gere wasn't just playing roles, he was shaping what it meant to be a man on screen. In American Gigolo, 1980, he became the embodiment of danger and desire. In An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982, he lifted Deborah Winger out of the factory and straight into cinematic immortality. And with Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman 1990, he created one of the most iconic love stories of all time, a film that grossed nearly $500 million and sealed his place as Hollywood's king of romance. But while the world saw a man bathed in light, Gere himself was already chasing something else, something quieter, deeper, more enduring than the applause. Unlike most of his peers, he didn't chase superhero franchises, didn't cling desperately to youth. Instead, he let his star mature, turning from sex symbol into something subtler, a man whose silence spoke more than monologues ever could. And yet, the irony was brutal. Just as Hollywood was still calling his name, Richard Gere walked away. He rejected blockbusters, disappeared from premieres, and turned down opportunities others would die for. To the outside world, it was madness. To him, it was survival. Because behind the applause and flashing bulbs, there was always a storm brewing, a storm that would one day break, costing him not just roles, but an entire career. Richard Tiffany Gere was born on August 31st, 1949, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the second of 5 children, in a modest, disciplined, middle-class family. His father, Homer, sold insurance. His mother, Doris, kept the home together. They weren't glamorous people, but they raised their children with frugality, education, and an almost old-fashioned American sense of duty. When Richard was still young, the family moved to upstate New York, and it was there in quiet suburbs and school gyms that the boy who would one day mesmerize millions first revealed himself. He wasn't loud, he wasn't rebellious, he was gifted. At North Syracuse Central High School, Richard seemed to have too many talents for one body. He played piano, guitar, trumpet, and bass, and even composed original scores for school musicals. He was on the student council, always with a quiet intensity. And as if that wasn't enough, he excelled at sports, lacrosse, gymnastics, so well that he earned a scholarship for college. But beneath the achievements was a restless spirit. In 1967, he enrolled at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, majoring in philosophy. philosophy already a clue that Gere's mind was not content with the superficial. Yet 2 years later, he walked away. He abandoned the safe route to chase the arts, first music, then theater, a decision that baffled his family, but revealed the principle that would define his entire life: never live by someone else's script. That mixed philosophical thought, musical soul, and athletic discipline made him unlike any other young actor of his generation. He wasn't just chasing applause, he was trying to understand existence itself, and soon that hunger would push him from the anonymity of upstate classrooms to the burning lights of the stage. By 1973, Richard Gere had left behind the safety of academia and stepped fully into performance. His first breakthrough was not in Hollywood, but on the London stage playing Danny Zuko in the West End production of Grease. The role revealed more than just a handsome face. It showed audiences a performer who could act, sing, and command the stage with a magnetic presence. His musical roots from high school, where he composed and played multiple instruments, suddenly became the backbone of his theatrical confidence. From there, Gere moved seamlessly between daring stage work and experimental plays. In The Taming of the Shrew, he wrestled with Shakespearean verse, sharpening his craft in front of unforgiving audiences. But it was Bent, a controversial, groundbreaking play about homosexual love in a concentration camp, that revealed his courage. Even in the earliest stages of his career, Gere wasn't afraid of risk. He chose roles that others might have run from, preferring to search for truth rather than easy applause. Hollywood took notice. His first film break came in 1977 with a small but unforgettable role in Looking for Mr. Goodbar. Though brief, his rugged, dangerous screen energy stood out. A year later, Terrence Malick cast him in Days of Heaven, 1978. With almost no dialogue, Gere's haunting eyes and quiet presence carried a film that critics still regard as one of cinema's masterpieces. But the real turning point was American Gigolo, 1980. Julian Kay, the sleek, seductive male escort, was unlike anything American audiences had seen before. Dangerous yet vulnerable, confident yet tormented, Gere embodied contradictions that redefined the Hollywood sex symbol. Masculinity had never looked like this before: mysterious, fragile, and devastatingly alluring. He didn't need explosions or special effects. Just one glance, one pause, and the world was his. And Hollywood was about to crown him, not just as a star, but as a legend in the making. The 1980s and 1990s were Richard Gere's kingdom. He wasn't just a movie star, he was a phenomenon. In An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982, as Zach Mayo, he transformed into the hardened young man, redeemed by love and discipline. The final scene where he sweeps Deborah Winger into his arms and out of the factory is still one of the most replayed moments in film history. It wasn't just a role, it was cinema's new definition of romance. Then came Pretty Woman, 1990, paired with Julia Roberts. Gere didn't overact or force charm, he simply let the camera drink in his silence, his stillness, his quiet gravitas. The chemistry between them created lightning on screen. What could have been just another romantic comedy became a cultural landmark, grossing over $460 million worldwide and elevating Gere into Hollywood's pantheon of eternal lovers. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, his reign only deepened. Runaway Bride, 1999, reunited him with Julia Roberts and gave audiences another taste of that irresistible magic. Chicago, 2002, revealed a new facet: Billy Flynn, the smooth lawyer whose razzle-dazzle performance earned Gere a Golden Globe and helped the film win Best Picture at the Oscars. Shall We Dance, 2004, let him be vulnerable, playing a middle-aged husband, rediscovering joy through dance. And in Arbitrage, 2012, he stripped away the romance entirely, delivering a chilling portrait of a corrupt CEO, proof that he wasn't just a pretty face, but a serious actor with depth. For 3 decades, Gere sustained his star power not through franchises or spectacle, but through a rare magnetism. He aged gracefully on screen, letting his charisma mature rather than fight against time. Every appearance felt layered, seductive, yet wounded, confident, yet questioning. Audiences weren't just watching a movie star, they were watching a man who seemed to live many lives in a single gaze. He had it all: fame, fortune, respect. But at the height of his power, Richard Gere did something no one expected. He walked away. Just as Richard Gere seemed untouchable, the tides shifted, not because of scandal, not because of fading talent, but because of a choice, a moment of conviction that cost him the empire he had built. At the 1993 Academy Awards, standing before 1 billion viewers, Gere broke from the script. Instead of reading lines, he spoke from the heart, a plea for China to withdraw from Tibet, a call for human rights and freedom. The silence in the room was deafening. The world applauded his courage, but Hollywood did not. Almost immediately, he was quietly blacklisted. For over 2 decades, Gere was banned from presenting at the Oscars, and the offers that once flooded in dried up. This wasn't coincidence. Hollywood studios had become increasingly dependent on the Chinese market, and Gere's name was suddenly toxic. He once said bitterly, "I used to have movies released globally. Then suddenly, no major studio wanted to work with me anymore." No one said it outright, but everyone knew why. And, as if fate was not finished with him, more controversy followed. In 2007, at an AIDS awareness event in India, Gere kissed actress Shilpa Shetty on stage, an innocent Hollywood gesture. But in India, it sparked outrage. Protesters burned his images in the streets, and a court even issued an arrest warrant for him on charges of public obscenity. Though the Supreme Court later dismissed the case, the damage was done. His name became entangled, not with films, but with headlines. The irony was cruel. While his peers chased franchises and billion-dollar deals, Gere, the man who once embodied Hollywood's golden romance, was quietly pushed out. He retreated to independent films like Time Out of Mind, 2014, where he played a homeless man invisible to society. The role mirrored his reality, once celebrated everywhere, now overlooked, fading into the background. But Richard Gere never begged for forgiveness, never compromised his beliefs. Instead, he turned inward: meditation, humanitarian work, long walks in the countryside. He once said plainly, "I don't care about returning to Hollywood. I care about how much wakeful time I have left in this life." He had traded fame for freedom, but the cost was heartbreaking. After the storm of Hollywood rejection, Richard Gere chose a quieter stage. By the mid-2010s, he no longer sought validation from studios or awards. Instead, he devoted himself to causes most of Hollywood dared not touch: homelessness, HIV/AIDS awareness, and above all, the Tibetan movement that had cost him his career. His Gere Foundation poured millions into humanitarian efforts, but he never turned them into self-promotion. "What I do," he once said, "is to keep myself from being consumed by meaninglessness." In 2014, fate offered him one more unexpected gift: Alejandra Silva, 33 years his junior, a Spanish activist who had also endured heartbreak. She entered his life not as a starlet, but as a partner who understood his search for peace. Richard wooed her with handwritten letters and daily flowers. They married in 2018 in a quiet Buddhist ceremony at his New York estate, Tibetan monks chanting blessings over their union. Their family grew quickly. Alejandra brought a son from her first marriage, and together they welcomed Alexander in 2019 and James in 2020. Gere's older son, Homer, from his previous marriage, also remained close. Unlike many celebrity families, theirs was built on privacy and shared values rather than spectacle. Alejandra herself once said, "What I treasure most in Richard is his humanity." By 2024, Richard and his family relocated to Madrid. Alejandra wanted to be closer to her roots, and Gere embraced Spain as a home where their boys could grow up away from Hollywood's glare. Local photographs show them walking hand in hand through quiet streets, attending community events, raising awareness for refugees and migrants. Far from the noise, he seemed finally content. Yet age, as always, has its script. At 75, Gere's once magnetic stillness now carries a fragility. His public appearances are rare, his movements slower, his face etched with time. When he speaks, it is with gentleness, gratitude, and the air of a man who has already made peace with the storms of his past. And still, the haunting question remains, did Richard Gere give up Hollywood, or did Hollywood give up Richard Gere? Richard Gere's story is not just about stardom, it is about redefining what a star could be. While many actors clung desperately to youth superhero franchises or tabloid headlines, Gere carved a different legacy, one built on stillness, depth, and integrity. He proved that masculinity did not have to roar to be powerful. In Days of Heaven, 1978, his silence said more than dialogue. In American Gigolo, 1980, he turned vulnerability into seduction. In An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982, he embodied honor, redeemed by love. And in Pretty Woman, 1990, he gave the world its most enduring modern fairy tale. Yet his cultural impact stretches beyond film reels. Gere was among the first American megastars to openly champion Tibet, risking everything for a cause he believed in. He became a symbol of conscience in an industry often accused of moral compromise. His exile from Hollywood wasn't a fall from grace. It was a testament to how dangerous integrity can be in a business that worships profit over principle. Through his Gere Foundation, launched in 1999, he has funded hundreds of initiatives, from AIDS research in Africa to homelessness prevention in the U.S. to refugee aid across Europe. Unlike many celebrities, he shunned the spotlight when it came to his philanthropy. He didn't give speeches for applause. He quietly gave resources to those who needed them. In Buddhist circles, he is not treated as a Hollywood guest, but as a practitioner, one who has walked the path with sincerity. His influence also lingers in how audiences remember him. He was never the loudest actor, never the most prolific, but his face, his gaze, his quiet conviction left an imprint. He gave us a different archetype of a leading man, seductive but fragile, confident but questioning, strong, yet willing to walk away. And perhaps that is the paradox of Richard Gere's legacy. He lost Hollywood, but gained something rarer: authenticity. He remains proof that true legends don't just live on the screen, they live in the choices they make when no one is watching. Richard Gere's life feels like a paradox carved into Hollywood marble. On one hand, he was everything the industry worships: devastatingly handsome, a magnetic performer, a box office draw. He gave us unforgettable cinema moments that still live on in collective memory, from carrying Deborah Winger out of the factory to sitting silently across from Julia Roberts as she laughed. Those scenes are eternal. But then there is the other side. Gere's tragedy is not scandal or disgrace, it is punishment for integrity. Hollywood didn't exile him for breaking laws or for betraying fans, but for speaking his truth. One unscripted Oscar speech, one kiss on a public stage, and suddenly a career that seemed untouchable crumbled. Studios turned away, not because Gere lost his gift, but because he dared to hold on to principles larger than profit. And here lies the haunting question: what matters more, the movies an actor leaves behind, or the courage to walk away when the price of staying is your soul? Gere chose silence, meditation, family, and humanitarian work. He chose to be forgotten by Hollywood rather than betray himself. And yet, in being forgotten, he may have become more unforgettable. For us, celebrity-forgotten Gere's story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. Heartbreaking because it shows how quickly an industry can discard even its brightest icons. Inspiring because it proves that a man can lose Hollywood and still find peace, love, and meaning. So we ask you, the audience, when you think of Richard Gere, do you remember the star who vanished or the man who refused to bow? Richard Gere's journey is one of light and shadow, applause and exile, love and heartbreak. From the boy in upstate New York who strummed his guitar and dreamed in philosophy to the man who swept the world into a dream with Pretty Woman, he became a symbol of a generation's longing for romance, grace, and depth. And yet, today at 75, the most haunting image is not his red carpet triumphs, but his quiet walks through Madrid with Alejandra and their children, far away from the machinery of Hollywood. The man once immortalized on cinema's grandest screens now finds his eternity in simplicity, a handwritten note to his wife, the laughter of his sons, the silence of meditation. But nostalgia has its own power. When we see clips of an officer and a gentleman, when Julia Roberts giggles under his gaze, when his eyes in Days of Heaven remind us that cinema can be poetry, we feel again the world he once created. A world where love was grand, romance was eternal, and silence could be louder than words. Time may have exiled him, but memory never will. And perhaps this is Gere's greatest gift. He showed us that legends are not just built in the glare of Hollywood. They live in the quiet choices, in the courage to walk away, and in the fragility that makes them human. Some stories were never meant to be known, but now you know.